All right. Well, there's game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Pacers 130, Knicks 121. The Pacers now lead 3-1 in the series over the Knicks. The next game will be played in New York. It's game 5. It is Thursday night. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend that game yet or not. I have yet to find out about a credential, but I'll be bringing you coverage regardless, no matter where it's from. Knicks lose 130 to 121 in game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. A very, very, very heartbreaking loss for Knick fans. Instead of just talking about the fact that it's heartbreaking, I think people want to feel seen and people want to feel heard. So I think it's worth talking about some of the things that fans have brought up now or throughout the season, so that fans feel like that there's someone hearing them and seeing what they see. Um, you start out with the turnovers. For the New York Knicks, who have traditionally been a low turnover team this season, they play a style of basketball that isn't really conducive to turnovers. It's not like they're zipping the ball all around the court like Indiana. They committed a lot of turnovers tonight, I believe 17 of them, particularly when Indiana is taking those turnovers and scoring off of them every time. It's hard to survive that. And so you see, it's a close game. I had a lot of points throughout the game, but whether it was turnovers or fouls or defensive miscommunication, the Knicks would make a mistake, as people and sports teams do. You're not human if you don't make mistakes. But that said, the Pacers, well, they make mistakes too. But one thing that you can't make a mistake about is that they make you pay every time you make a mistake. So the Pacers, like every other human being, every group of human beings out there, every sports team out there, they make mistakes. That's okay. But what they damn sure make sure of is that they're capitalizing off of your mistakes. That's what you saw tonight. Indiana getting out in transition, getting up and at them on the fast breaks, off of the turnovers. Just really impressive basketball from the Pacers. I said before the series, the Knicks are a great team that play good basketball, and the Pacers are a really good team that play great basketball. And that could be the difference in the series. Will the Knicks being more talented at the top of their roster, which is all that matters in the NBA, will that matter more than the Pacers' style of play? I don't think this is as simple as, the Pacers play 11 guys and the Knicks play 8 and sometimes 7 or 9. So, you know, I understand why when asked if fatigue was a factor down the stretch in game 2, Tom Thibodeau said, we lost for whatever you want to say we lost for. Because if you're coming here after a close game saying, the guys were tired, that's why they lost, you're clearly just looking to say it. I genuinely understand that perspective. And while I thought it was sassy of Thibodeau in the moment, I genuinely understand that answer, and I understand why he responded like that. It's a frustrating close loss, and you're being asked about fatigue from guys who I know were out there asking to play the rest of the game. All that said, Tyrese Halliburton, we talk about turnovers, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 15 assists, and zero, none, zilch, nada, 9, nunca, right? Let's get international. Really impressive. And, Jokic is the only player in these playoffs with more than one triple-double. Halliburton now joins Giannis, Cade, Josh Hart, Julius Randle as the only other players with triple-doubles in these playoffs. So that's really impressive. And he had an amazing game. I don't think you can take anything away from Tyrese Halliburton after this game. And if you're looking to, I think that's a little odd too. But what you can say is that the Knicks didn't do much to make Tyrese Halliburton's life difficult. The Knicks didn't do much in the way of physicality or in coverage or staying mentally sharp to make his life difficult on the basketball court. I found too often that Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart were being beat, whether it was Hart getting beat off the dribble or getting blown by off the dribble or getting beat on a back cut, or whether it was Mikal Bridges just being a step slow. It's funny with Bridges. And I'm trying to talk about the Pacers as much as possible to kind of address how the Knicks side of things plays into this. But to be completely honest, Bridges, his contact averseness showed over the course of this game. Fred Katz had a tweet about how his unwillingness to go to the rim and take a layup have hurt the Knicks several times. He got it in an and one on one of them, I think. and it was pretty rough with all the rest. So with that established, we talk about how Mikal Bridges and him being contact averse affects the Knicks on the offensive end of the floor. I saw it tonight on the defensive end of the floor. And this is something that I would hope the average sports fan is not watching when they watch basketball, but something that I just can't help but notice. There was a time early in the game, and I want to say it was not even in the first quarter, but or later in it. Mikal Bridges had a screen set on him by Miles Turner, and the screen was a lot for him physically. Turner is 7 feet tall and freaking huge. We saw Halliburton hit the deck after a Mitchell Robinson screen knocked him over. So fair, you understand it. But Bridges, after he got hit hard by that screen, started going under on pick and rolls to just avoid the screen entirely. That doesn't seem to me like a strategic switch that the coach implemented in that moment. So if I were at this game in Indiana, and I really hope one day that I'm able to have a full-time job reporting on the NBA and bring you guys coverage from all over the country. I care so much about basketball and about covering the game in a way that respects the players and gives them their shine. I'd love that opportunity, but for right now, I'm here in New York City, and what I was able to see through the TV, and so I'm left to assume, which is fine, but you never want to treat it as fact. I'm left to assume that Mikal Bridges, to avoid getting knocked over by screens from 7-footers, which, again, understandable, started kind of ducking the screens. And if you're not going to chase them over, well, you sure as hell can't sag on them under, right? Because when you sag, they can get a quick shot up. And a modern philosopher by the name of Kris Pursiainen once said, "Hand down, man down." And that's what the Knicks struggled with tonight, having a hand down. Let's talk about the Knicks now. Let's get into the Knicks side of this conversation. They did not do a good job of punishing Indiana for their infrequent mistakes. They did not do a good job of making sure that they were not in their own way. They did not do a good job of taking care of the basketball. And that's part of that last point. It felt to me tonight like a lot of the Knicks' maladies were self-inflicted to some extent. Last couple minutes in the fourth quarter, and I'll pull up the exact statistics for you guys right now, but Tom Thibodeau went to the starting lineup that started the first 96 games of the season. That lineup has been historically bad in a historically large sample, and that is what they went to save the season. So that, in and of itself, is probably a little bit of a problem. Aside from that, it felt a little bit like the Knicks were experimenting as crazily as they could tonight. And I do think that their experiments were good, right? New York's best lineup tonight in 7 minutes and 17 seconds of play. And stay with me while I name the 5 players, because I know the names really fast. It can get to be a lot. So go one at a time. When the Knicks 5-man lineup was DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet, and then Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns. So that's Wright, Shamet, Hart, Anunoby, Towns. That lineup played 7 minutes, 17 seconds, and won their minutes 17-7. What's impressive about that is the fact that with the final score of 130-121, the second time at minimum this series that one of the two teams has scored 130 points. But with that said, their worst lineup was their starting lineup. And that lineup, which was Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Towns, Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Towns, and Robinson. Well, that lineup played 10 minutes and 17 seconds and lost its minutes 30-22. So they gave up 30 points, right? In the 10 minutes that lineup was on the court, they gave up 30 points. They were able to score 22. They had a 110 offensive rating, that lineup. But a defensive rating of 150 isn't going to get it done against a team that knows how to punish every misstep you take. And so for the New York Knicks, who closed the game with the last 2 minutes, they went with a lineup of Brunson, Bridges, Shamet, Anunoby, and Towns. Well, I don't think any Knicks fan would dare to say that Landry Shamet should have played more with the starters in the regular season in the case that someone fouled out or got injured in the playoffs and Landry Shamet needed to play with the starters. So you can have him develop synergy with that lineup. I don't think anyone reasonable would have said that, right? But here's the thing. You've got to trust your backup quarterback to be a starter. If you have a backup quarterback, you have trust in them to be a starter. Not as good as your starter, not as good as the average starter, but a starter level player. Because if your quarterback goes down, it's your job as a general manager to have a backup. And that backup needs to be ready to go. The New York Knicks tonight needed their backup. DeLon Wright played. Landry Shamet played. And both of those two guys, they were really good in game 3 in the win. And they were very good tonight as well. I thought both were good tonight. DeLon Wright was excellent out there, particularly when paired with OG Anunoby. You saw that the two of them played together in Toronto when they were out there because of the ways that they were, frankly, terrorizing passing lanes of Indiana's. With all of that said, the Knicks' backup quarterback got in the, showed up to the game ready to be a backup quarterback. And they did their job of being the backup quarterback great. And then with 2 minutes to go, they had to play him in a close game. And all of a sudden, this backup quarterback that you trusted, well, how many reps did they get with the first team all year? No, the starter was healthy. They really only practiced with the second team. Huh. Well, who do they have rapport with in the first team? There was a week or two where the starter took a day off practice. I'll kill the football analogy because I'm sure it's getting excruciatingly exhausting, but you get my point. Landry Shamet closed the game for the Knicks. And at this point in their season, every game is the most important game of the season. So I believe this was game 98 of the Knicks season. Landry Shamet closed game number 98 of the Knicks season with a lineup that he just had not played much with before. DeLon Wright was on the court in the fourth quarter. He replaced Campaign in the rotation over these last 2 games, and he's been more than that. He's been a reliable defender and someone who keeps the ball moving on offense. He played 230 minutes in the regular season for the New York Knicks. Granted, they acquired him at the trade deadline. So each game is 48 minutes. Okay, 230 minutes. Okay, so that's about 4.5 games worth of play time in half a season. So he played a rate of 9 games for the season. It's not nothing. But for that guy to play 9 games and then to be on the court with 20% of the responsibility for how the Knicks season goes in the fourth quarter of the Eastern Conference Finals on the road, that's where I start to think, okay, I believe strongly and firmly that the concerns about Tom Thibodeau and the minutes that he plays his starters are overblown. I think they're overrated, overblown, whatever you want to call it. I am in agreement with the Knicks beat reporters that don't take those concerns seriously. And the data agrees with that as well, historically, over the course of Thibodeau's career. All of that said, you saw tonight why some fans think it important to allow key reserves to develop camaraderie and chemistry with some of the key rotation players. You saw tonight why fans advocated for more players to play in the rotation when they were talking about the extent to which those players could gel with the starters. I think fans definitely were mainly concerned about the minutes and potential injury, which I vehemently disagree with. But that said, right, it does feel like the Knicks, over the course of the last 2 games, have speed ran a month's worth of rotational experiments. And for them to seem unprepared in certain moments, in large moments, there's a reason for that, right? Last year's Knicks, Game 2 against the Philadelphia 76ers. The end of that game, there's a scramble drill, a loose ball, a three, an offensive rebound of that miss, and they get it out to Dante DiVincenzo, who hits the biggest shot of the year for the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden. And the reporting after that shot, particularly from Fred Katz of The Athletic, who does really excellent work, was that the Knicks were highly prepared for that situation. They were highly prepared for that situation because the 5 players on the court practice, play together all the time. But aside from all that, they practice these situations. Thibodeau has them practice what to do with 10, 15 seconds left in a close game that they're losing. Tom Thibodeau is obsessed with preparation, and he's obsessed with making the most of opportunities. But I fear that tonight he failed to help the Knicks make the most of the opportunity they had to tie the series up on the road. It is an inherently hard thing to do, to say, oh, we just got to win a game on the road in the NBA playoffs. When there's only 4 teams left. Just got to win one on the road, guys. And it's also very pressuring to the players to know down 13, down 11, down 9, down 7, that if they don't continue to shrink that deficit, their season's effectively over. The pressure is huge. And in a road game, they had Pat McAfee yelling expletives on the PA and hyping up the fans. Like, that's awesome. That's super awesome. And I thought they had a great spin calling out Chalamet, Stiller, and others. Like, I thought that was great. But it's definitely brutal to go into a road environment where if you win the game, you turn a series on its head, and you allow your team an opportunity to go back to New York City and restart this series best out of 3, tied 2-2. Because that's what would have happened. If the Knicks tied this game tonight in Indiana, there would have been 3 games left in the series at absolute most. 2 of them would have been at home for the Knicks. And if they were able to win both of those games and lose the road game, they still would have won the series. Now the Knicks go back to home facing a deficit. I saw some parallels here between the Boston series and this one, right? Tatum, Towns going down late, but the team was already pretty much destined to go down 3-1 at the end of the night. Credit to Karl Anthony Towns for pushing through the pain. But I think the real pain in Knicks fans' hearts tonight is the fact that they were thinking, well, I guess it's fine that Towns got hurt now because he's going to have a lot of time to recover. It feels like the season ended effectively tonight at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indiana. It feels like the season ended for the Knicks because they weren't ready when the moment called their name. And I don't think that that's solely a criticism of the coach or the players. It's just the team got caught off guard. Something I think is worth bringing up is Josh Hart's involvement in tonight's game. I frankly am confused by the extent to which we heard about the Herculean sacrifice that Hart was making. I'm confused about the extent to which we heard that this was a mutual decision to move Josh Hart to the bench. I am confused about the extent to which we heard that Hart was glad to do this and, he just wants to win. Because to me, that's a player who's being dead serious and really obviously wants to start every game and wants to be a starter, but understands that he would rather win than start. For Tom Thibodeau to use him just as much, arguably, if not more, off the bench than he did as a starter, feels a little bit like the Knicks played in everyone's faces. It feels a bit like Tom Thibodeau saw he was down 0-2 and decided that starting games in a hole wasn't beneficial, but that once they didn't start the game in a hole, he could get back to doing what he was doing. And aside from putting in Wright for Payne, the only experimentation that was done was Landry Shamet playing. So now you come in to game 4 in Indiana, And you're playing lineups that either have never played together before this season or have barely played together before this season. And the response might be, well, those weren't the team's, most talented lineups, so they shouldn't be playing the most. The regular season is a little bit about getting sample sizes, right? Tom Thibodeau is beloved by Knicks fans for his dedication to trying to go 82-0 every season and the extent to which he values fans' time and hard-earned money by making sure every night the team is giving their best as a way of building habits over the course of the season. The Knicks built a habit over the course of this season of playing their worst lineup about half of every game. The Knicks built a habit over the course of this season of coming up just short when they needed to come up big and making up for it after. That's fine for 82 games. That's fine for 88 games. You might even go as far as to say that because of how things played out, it's fine after 94 games. But now the Knicks are 98 games into their season. And they're still falling into their habit of playing like there's a tomorrow. Now, technically, mathematically, logically, realistically, there is a tomorrow. And there's a Thursday where the Knicks will host Game 5 at Madison Square Garden against the Indiana Pacers. But that could be the last tomorrow. And for the New York Knicks to make sure that they're treating it like the last tomorrow is something that should have started against the Boston Celtics. Treating it like it's their potentially last tomorrow was something that should have started at the latest for the NBA playoffs. And if not then at the latest for the Boston Celtics series. And if not then, at the latest for Game 5 of the Boston Celtics series. The New York Knicks had an opportunity to put their foot down on the head of the snake and crush it. And they played like they were going to live to fight another day. And they won that next battle. They fought another day, right? They fought 2 days later against the Boston Celtics, and they threw a garden party. Like the scene in Sinners, where the spirits from all throughout history are brought together by music. The New York Knicks, Game 6 at the Garden against the Boston Celtics, brought the spirits of Knicks past, Knicks present, probably Knicks future, right? Jalen Brunson was on the court at 8 years old, and he's got photos at Madison Square Garden chasing Patrick Ewing around from when he was 3. You know, who knows who was in the crowd at Game 6? Maybe J.R. Smith, maybe Steve Novak, maybe one of these early 2010s Knicks has a kid coming up through the ranks that is going to be the next great Knicks star like Jalen Brunson. But if not then, at the absolute very latest, the New York Knicks needed to play with desperation for every single game of the Eastern Conference Finals. They failed to do that at the end of Game 1, when they played like there was going to be another day to fight. The Pacers played like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And like, if they didn't win Game 1, their season was over. So they won Game 1. The Knicks came out tough in Game 2. But they still played their worst lineup all season for a quarter of the game. More, actually. 15 over 48, 5 over 16, so 5/16 of the game. Just over 25% by the Knicks' worst lineup. And tonight, with several minutes left in the game, it wasn't the lineup they closed the game with, but for a big stretch in the fourth quarter, the Knicks played their starting lineup for the first 94 games of the season that was historically bad in a historically large sample. With the season on the line, the Knicks had to turn to either lineups they had barely played or lineups they had played a lot and as a result knew were bad. I understand the difficulty the level of difficulty that gives any situation, that any team or player or fan is in. But the New York Knicks tonight lost this game against the Indiana Pacers, in which they scored 121 points. They played well on offense for enough of the game to crack 120. But for the second time this series, the Pacers cracked 130. And it's hard to beat that. They almost did in game 1 with a final score of 138 to 135. They didn't do it in game 4. And so I sit here now talking to you as you listen to the sound of my voice or read closed captions. I sit here talking to you about a Knicks team that's down 3-1 because for 96 games, they showed you how close to the sun they could fly. They showed you the wax dripping off of their wings as they began to melt. But every single time, they got back up. They pushed just a little closer to the sun until it was so cold out there in space that the wax froze back up. In game 4, the Pacers took 18 lighters and said, and lit them up. So, all in all, the Knicks put themselves in a tough position tonight by blowing a 14-point lead with 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go in game 1. The Knicks had a chance to quickly undo that in game 2. Indiana truly deserved to win that game, especially because of the Knicks' continued insistence on what has been their worst lineup all season. So the Knicks go to Indiana down 2-0, and they show everyone the grit that they've got. Win. 2-1. 1 win away from a tied series. 1 win away from a best of 3, with 2 of those 3 games coming at Madison Square Garden, determining which team goes to the NBA Finals. But that's the story of the Knicks season. Well, they almost tied up the Eastern Conference Finals, where then they would have had home court advantage after. They almost did. It caught up to them. It caught up to them. It always catches up to you. Any cutting corners, anything of any kind, it will catch up to you. It caught up to them. So for Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson, who in the first half weren't rebounding the ball well because the Pacers knew how to stop it, but were still out there on the court for their defense and level of energy that they kind of also didn't bring to the extent that Knicks fans are used to. And I understand this is 4 games into a series against a high-paced, high-octane team that wears you down. And it's 3 rounds into the playoffs, and they played the Celtics and the Pistons. These teams are exhausted. But Indiana keeps being a really good team that plays really great basketball. And the Knicks keep being a pretty great team that can play really good basketball, but usually just plays pretty good basketball. And so as the Indiana Pacers move towards victory in this series against the New York Knicks, it's worth wondering what the Knicks can do going forward to make sure that the same mistakes that effectively ended their season tonight don't haunt the team forever. It's going to be a lot of tough questions and conversations to have during the offseason. I know fans want to get into coaching discussions and coaching searches and everything of the sort. For right now, even if you think that buying that new outfit will make you have a sense of style, what are you going to wear the rest of the week, man? What are you going to wear the rest of the week? Your sense of style comes from how you dress for a week. Are you showing up to work every day with a hard-ass fit on? Are you showing up to school every day, putting that on, looking absolutely fire on Monday, and then you run out of designer stuff, and for the rest of the week, it's Uniqlo and Champion? The Knicks got to clean up what they've got in their own closet before they look to go buy a new outfit. There is something to me that they learned this postseason, which is Brunson and Cat might each be at their best when the other's off the court. Not because they don't work together on offense, but because the defense is so hard to account for. I also think Josh Hart made that a tough evaluation throughout the course of the season. He's supposed to be the Energizer Bunny, always bringing it on defense, and it felt a little bit like he was getting beat backdoor a good amount in the playoffs. And it didn't feel like that. It looked like it. So the lesson for the Knicks, when you play a rotation and a style of basketball that benefits greatly from making your shots, but can survive not making your shots, but kind of just goes in half on every identity. Yes, we have a potential MVP caliber 6'1" point guard. And yes, we have a 7-footer that's one of the best 3-point shooters in the entire league. So we're going to start Josh Hart, who teams don't respect on defense. I think he's very able on offense, but teams act like he's not because it's the smartest thing to do. And for Tom Thibodeau, someone who reportedly pounded the table for Deuce McBride pre-draft, who told the Knicks they needed to draft that kid, they needed to get him Deuce McBride because that's a Tibbs guy and he's going to fit right in. To watch that player go to Westchester, take his lumps, become a 50% three-point shooter in Westchester, get called back, become a 38% three-point shooter in the NBA, and to say, well, that starting lineup didn't really work for 96 games there, but maybe in game 98, maybe that's the one where we break through. It's just tough. It's tough because you'll never know if they could have won or not if they did things differently. But you do know deep down that you don't feel like they did their best. If you commissioned someone to do something for you, let's say paint a painting, and it's a small-time artist, and they give their best, and it's just not good enough. The painting's not great, but it's what you ordered, it's what you commissioned, you got what you paid for. That's one thing, right? But it hurts a little extra when you pay up big time, you pay extra for the big name, the famous artist, and they just mail it in. I mean, you're just a paycheck, and they just mail in your piece of art. All of a sudden, they got your Mother's Day gift looking like a Jackson Pollock, but not on purpose. I just think there's something to the extent to which the Knicks played around this season, waiting for things to gel, waiting for Mitchell Robinson to come back. Once he did come back, rarely deploying him and Towns together, having that lineup be integral against the Detroit Pistons and barely deploying it because they had barely deployed it. Having that lineup be integral against the Boston Celtics, not to start games, but to have as an option in the case that they went with a personnel group that would necessitate a double big look. And it definitely became integral in the Indiana series where you needed to have options that weren't the double big lineup for throughout the course of the game so that you could alternate them. But for the minutes when Robinson wasn't on the floor and Towns was, Hart was always on the floor with him. I think we just saw 98 games of the Knicks never one time fully committing to running a 5-out offense. I'm sure they did it 2 or 3 times. I'm sure they've played at least 28 minutes this season that the lineup was 5 shooters, right? I'm sure that data's out there somewhere. But it feels now after game number 98 like this team is still looking for the best way to deploy its collection of talent. And that's why the Thunder have found theirs and the Pacers have found theirs, right? Because through the course of the regular season, their head coaches experiment not throwing games, but in games where they're already up by so many points or in games where they're already down by so many points. They experiment with different lineups for the sake of evaluating their own roster and understanding what they have. The Knicks seem to believe that they are able to evaluate their own roster top to bottom, regardless of whether they ever step foot on an NBA court or not. And that just hasn't worked for them. And it resulted in playing DeLon Wright, giving him 20% of the responsibility on the court to save your season, in the fourth quarter of Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals after he played just 230 regular season minutes. So that's that. Let's get to your comments. This will be a shorter stream. I am still at work, going to head home after. I was just producing the JR Sport Brief from 6 to 10. I've been here since 4, and I'm very ready to go home. But I decided before I went home, I should hop on a live stream and talk some Knicks with y'all. So any questions, any comments, I believe you can leave them on both Twitter and YouTube, and I'll be able to see them. So let me know. We've got a couple comments in already. So yeah, just let me know if there's any other questions you've got. I'll get to the couple comments right now, and if nothing else, it's been great talking to y'all. Psych Mamter, shout out to Psych Mamter, man. This is an Infinity Sports Network loyal fan. This is a fan who knows that if you're listening to the Infinity Sports Network, if you really like a couple of the hosts, you don't have to pick one. You can enjoy them all. This is someone who understands the connectivity that different shows can have when they're under the same network and appreciates it. Psych Mamter. Cool dude. Not a Knicks fan, but a KP fan. Dude is legit. I appreciate that very much. Definitely not the first comment I was expecting to read tonight. The kind words mean a lot to me, and they don't go unnoticed. But I do know that the people watching this stream, the 783 loyal fans of the Knicks watching this stream, trying to find out what happened, the fans of the Indiana Pacers watching this stream to say, I wonder what we did extra well, the fans of the other 28 NBA teams wondering what happened in this game. I know they don't really want to hear about this too much, so I'll thank you and move on to the next comment. Isaiah, I'm so freaking heated, Christopher. Yeah, I understand that. I understand any Knicks fan being very upset after that game. It felt like not only were there things to be upset about in the different moments of the game, but those moments of the game similarly brought up different things that fans were upset about from throughout the season, right? If I tell you every single day to make sure that you open door handles upside down, like this is a door handle, you take it, you pull it down and you open the door like a normal person, right? If I told you for the rest of your life, you've got to do it upside down and you didn't listen, and then one time you were opening a door and your hand got caught in it, I could sit there and I could say, I told you so. I told you so. But it wouldn't make much sense. Here's the thing. For the New York Knicks tonight, a lot of what fans were upset about throughout the season manifested itself. And again, I repeat that we have to disregard the silliness of the concerns about minutes, the minutes police, all of that. But if we disregard that, a lot of the complaints from fans were Josh Hart is treated by the coach with the same rotational importance as Jalen Brunson. He plays the same amount of minutes as Brunson. He'll call a timeout to get him and Brunson back in the game. Whatever it is, the Knicks treated Hart with his role throughout the course of the season like he was similarly important to Jalen Brunson. That's something that frustrated fans, not because they did not want Josh Hart to get his well-deserved shine, but it frustrated fans because it felt like the team wasn't prioritizing what it needed to be prioritizing to play its best basketball. And that is fair. Another concern that popped up, these reserves never really play. A lot of people are upset because of the injuries. Well, we're sitting here after 98 games and the Knicks are still healthy for the most part. We'll see what happened with Karl Anthony Towns. I definitely have not checked my phone for any updates. I've had it on Do Not Disturb for a good while. No injury updates on Karl Towns. Here we go. Tom Thibodeau told the media that he went to Landry Shamet over Deuce McBride because he wanted a little more size after Hart fouled out. That Isaiah, if I were a Knicks fan in your position, that would have me freaking heated. I have no words for that. I I just got to move on. I have no analysis for that. I'll read it again. Tom Thibodeau said he went to Shamit over Deuce McBride after Hart fouled out because he wanted a little more size. Credit, of course, to Christian Winfield of the New York Daily News. I have no words for that. I have no words for that. That's mind-boggling. There's no justification for that. McBride played more minutes with those other players over the course of the regular season. He had the camaraderie with them that Shamit, to no fault of Shamit's, couldn't grow when he was injured with the shoulder injury. But to say that you played Shamit over McBride, one of your better players in this series, because he's a couple inches taller, that would infuriate me if I were a Knicks fan, because that to me feels like a non-answer. But it is. It's the answer. But it doesn't mean anything. So definitely tough to hear that. Oh, Manny Rodriguez, what's up, man? You probably already left since leaving this comment, and I wouldn't blame you. But are you never not at 345? No, I guess I live here now, man. I guess I live here now. I'll be back tomorrow from 4 to 11. Yeah, no, I think I live at work now. I think that's fair. Lou Paripasu, a fan of the live streams, a supporter. It's good to see you again, Lou. I appreciate you always. Can you try to break it down for me? Who played poorly? Who can we blame? Well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't tell you who to blame. I would say that Josh Hart played poorly in the first half and a lot of the second. Mitchell Robinson played poorly in the first half. Jalen Brunson played poorly in the fourth quarter. Mikal Bridges played poorly mostly in both halves. OG Anunoby was great. And Deuce McBride was good. Landry Shamet was fine. DeLon Wright was good. Shamet, actually, I'll say pretty good. Under good is pretty good. Pretty good. I'll say Shamet was pretty good. Karl-Anthony Towns, the conundrum that he is, had a really good game, I thought. Statistically, I'm not sure what he did. I have no idea what it even looks like. But just defensively, I thought he was all right enough. Yeah, Karl Towns, the only one of the 5 starters and Josh Hart, so the 6 starters, to have a positive plus-minus in this game. Cat, 8 of 15, 1 of 2 from deep, 24-12, 3 dimes. 1 of 2 from deep is intriguing to me. It feels like he's really hurt the Pacers from downtown more so than in any other series in the playoffs. I guess they limited his 3-point shooting tonight by allowing him to eat inside. So paid off. Yeah, shout out to DeLon Wright, who was really great tonight. Shout out to Landry Shamet for being put in a really tough situation, giving a +6 plus-minus. DeLon Wright, a +11 in 9 minutes. Wow. But this is just the Knicks have questions to ask themselves, because they're going to have, assuming that they bring back this core, the 5 players that started 96 games this season, assuming they're all back on the team next year. Is Deuce McBride now in the Emmanuel Quickley spot, where it's clear from the data that he should start, but it's never going to happen, and he's just signed to a cheaper deal, so it's not incumbent on the team to trade him? I don't know, but I said before game 3 I would go McBride over Robinson in the starting lineup, not only because the double big lineup is no good against the Pacers and how fast they play, but also a little bit because Deuce gives the starters help in a way that neither Mitch or Hart can. It allows them to truly have 5 shooters on the court to start the games, and instead of starting in a hole, maybe start with a lead. So yeah, again, not going to tell you guys who to blame. That's silly. But I do think if I had to pick one reason the Knicks lost tonight, I would say for reasons that were up to them and reasons that were not, they played the players, all of them, that would have constituted the best rotation this team could have run all season from the deadline and on. Delon Wright, deadline pickup. But it feels like they never quite got all 5 on the court at once. It feels like in connections or Wordle, when you have 4 green letters and you just keep getting a gray on the 5th. Or if you're playing connections, you have like 3 yellows, but then you try like a blue, a purple, a green. It still just always felt like they were one move away from really being at their best. So yeah, we got 2 more comments to go to, and then I'll be wrapping things out so I can start heading home. But I'm excited to talk with you guys more about the NBA playoffs and this series, particularly, like I said, Thursday. If I'm lucky enough to have my credential approved, I'll be at Madison Square Garden. If they're at capacity, which is very understandable for an Eastern Conference Finals at Madison Square Garden, if they're at capacity, then I'll be bringing you my full coverage just from home. Lou, one more comment, says for him, it was defensively. OG could not guard Siakam, and they were exploiting the mismatch. I would disagree a little bit. Defensively, the Knicks weren't good. They weren't as good as they could be. They were bad. None of it was great. I don't know that I'd single out OG can't guard Siakam as the takeaway. I feel like the Pacers just always made the right play. And I do think there's something to that, right? Like, oh, that guy just always makes the right play at the right time. Are they really good then? Oh, well, they're really good. That's what really good players do. What a fun series so far from a basketball fan perspective. The comeback in game 1, the Knicks comeback in game 3. Game 4 was an opportunity for the Knicks to set up the series of the year, right? That thing could have came down to game 7 at Madison Square Garden. Now it still could, but it would legitimately be breaking history if the Knicks were to win that game 7. Lou, I appreciate you tuning in, and thanks for the comments. Chubbs 1889 also, De Lo Mio, great to see you making moves. KP, glad we got a Dominican on the team. Finally, wish he wasn't a cone on defense. Did you know Jericho Sims is Dominican? Jericho Sims. The Knicks had a Dominican on the team. They just didn't play him much, but that's all right. Yeah, appreciate you. Get okay. It's great to have a Dominican player on a basketball team that plays in New York City. Even if it's the Knicks or the Nets, I think that's fantastic. The fact that it's the Knicks is even better. It's definitely great. And it's interesting, yes, sure. He is a little bit of a cone on wheels on defense, but he was winning the Knicks the portions of the series that the Knicks were winning, it felt like it was because of Karl Anthony Towns. Like his game 3 performance. Holy crap. Have you seen a player score 20 points in the 4th quarter before on the road? Damn. But it also felt like while his points were worth more than normal points, the points he gave up were worth more than normal defensive breakdowns. He's a very extreme player. He's not polarizing. He is both polar opposites all together, all at once. And I think the New York Knicks need to make sure that they have someone in the building next season who's doing everything they can to know that the team is putting its best lineups forward. Not to do everything they can with regard to optimizing a single player, but to do everything they can with regard to optimizing their lineups going forward. So, Brunson Cat live media interview on ESPN Now. I assume that's their post-game presser. I assume you guys want to go listen to that. So I will take these last couple comments and get out your way. Nathaniel Isaac. Oh, I remember you. I'm back. 5 more till I'm a prophet. I guaranteed OKC would win the whole thing. Nathaniel, it looks very smart. Looks very smart. It's a great take. I remember you saying something that made me disagree with you for some reason that I was right for, but I never said you weren't right about this. And you are right about this. This is probably what's going to happen. So yeah, For all the hullabaloo, hubbub, and hoopla about how the NBA last year wasn't giving the Pacers a fair chance because the Knicks are a big market and they're a small market, which is what Rick Carlisle told reporters with a straight face after one of their first two losses in the series. The NBA is going to have an Oklahoma City, Indiana finals because they just hate small markets so much. They're out to get those small markets, those pesky small markets. I think it's so awesome if we get a finals that's two small markets. That is super awesome. That is what those fans deserve. That is what any fan deserves. I love it. I would love it. People are like, oh, this is the NBA's nightmare. But then those same people say that they rigged the lottery for New Orleans twice. Hello? Like, what are we doing? Those people will say, oh, this is the NBA's nightmare. It's just two small markets in the finals. Then those same people will turn around and say the NBA rigged the lottery for Cleveland twice. LeBron and Kyrie, Chris Paul and AD. Oh no, AD and Zion. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Nathaniel, props to you, my man. Lou, props to me. Almost 1,000 listening. Stay consistent. Lou, appreciate you greatly. I definitely cannot go live from Madison Square Garden immediately after a game. I'm in there writing up an article, speaking with coaches and trying to get my quotes and everything to do my coverage. But games that I'm not covering, particularly Knicks games, knowing my audience, it's always great to be able to go live and just talk some hoops with you guys. Chubbs, that's OMG, that's right. Oh, that was about Jericho. Yeah. Brunson Cat live media interview on ESPN now. If you want to go tune in, don't blame you. Chubbs, think we got to do like Minnie did to get a player alongside him. That's what the Knicks did in game 3. They put Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup. That is the player alongside Towns. The problem is they played Hart like 44 minutes each of those games. So it makes it a little bit tough to say, a guy's making a huge sacrifice when he's playing more minutes than he was before. Emily, hey, how are you? I hope you're doing good. Miss you. Knicks in 7. Maybe. Maybe. But I wouldn't put money on it, that's for sure. I wouldn't put a single of my cents, whether they were hard earned or not earned at all. I wouldn't put a single cent on it because there's no historical. That's actually not the reason. The reason is not because there's no historical precedent for it. The reason is because it's damn near impossible. The mental game becomes huge at that point. And the Knicks looked tonight like they were crumbling under the mental pressure. Brunson 0 of 2 from the field in the entire fourth quarter, I believe. That's very unlike that guy. The guy that just won Clutch Player of the Year. That's unlike him. It's very unlike him. So we'll take a look. Jalen Brunson, see his stat line tonight. Oh no, he was 1 of 3. He was 1 of 3. Brunson was 1 of 3 in the fourth quarter. Because he scored. When did he score in the fourth? I don't know. I can't find it. The real app is the best app for scores, but I could not find it fast enough on there. Emily, thank you for the comment. I will talk to you in like 2 minutes. Chubbs, Indy got the Knicks number. They are not coming back. Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. So, with all of that said, I just worked for 8 hours and then decided to get on and live stream with y'all. I'm always thrown off by the amount of people that watch these things. I think it's great just to feel like I'm bringing coverage of the game that people think is worth hearing. You guys are ultimately who this is all for. So if you're listening, then I must be doing all right. Let me know. If you want to DM me, my DMs are open. If you want to tweet at me, anything I could have done to make the show better or worse, if you're out to sabotage me, let me know. I'm always here for feedback, comments, questions, concerns, general complaints. All right here, baby. I'm ready. Other than that, thanks so much for tuning in. Stay tuned to my coverage. If you don't already follow me on Twitter, which I assume you do, which is how you got in here in the first place, go follow me on Twitter right there. And I'll talk to you guys on Thursday at the latest. We'll see if it's from the garden or from the couch, but whichever one, I'll be bringing it. So Lou, thank you for being here, man. Lou, appreciate you in the chat. Appreciate everyone in the chat greatly. Appreciate everyone who left a comment. Appreciate everyone who thought about leaving a comment but didn't. Appreciate everyone who said, I don't have it in me to type a single word right now, but I'll listen to this asshole talk for a little bit. Appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. I always mean to do like a 20-minute live stream, and I always end up going live for an hour. So I'm going to make sure that my parents don't think I'm dead because I haven't come home from work and I was supposed to be home an hour ago. And I will talk to you guys soon. Appreciate you lots. Stay tuned. We'll keep covering the NBA all season, all off season, all lifetime long. KP out. Catch y'all.